Folks, we just got a new look at new Virtua Fighter Project, the new Virtua Fighter game that is coming out at some point in the distant future, the sequel to Virtua Fighter 5, and people are kind of freaking out about it, right? It looks kind of amazing. I've never really seen a fighting game that looks like this before in terms of the smoothness of the animation and the way the characters kind of are interacting with each other, and I think there's a good reason for that. And it's this text at the bottom that says pre-development in-engine footage, not actual gameplay. So I'm going to be a bit of a hater today and talk about why I think maybe people are overreacting to this footage. Maybe people are taking it too much at face value and just assuming that this is what the actual game is going to look like, even though most of the time that doesn't usually end up being true for footage like this. I also find it a little silly that they put meters at the top, like round counters and health bars. Like, bro, it's not gameplay. Why are you putting them at the top? It doesn't mean anything. I think the first mistake people are maybe making is they've seen the first set of footage that we got at the Virtua Fighter Direct, and they're saying, well, that looks pretty darn good. Right here it is. This looks pretty cool, pretty good. And then they looked at this footage, which came out later, and they went, whoa, this looks even better. So the game is going to look even better than this. Like, look at the curve of how the quality is improving over time. But that's not really the case because this footage was made first. This was the gameplay target footage, where the idea is basically they put together this kind of cutscene in engine. They do motion capture, or they reuse existing animations, or they write new animations that are really in depth, that look really amazing, and then this is what they can show to investors and be like, this is what we want the final game to look like. It's definitely not a guarantee that the final game is going to look like this, but this is what we're aiming for with our game development. And I think in the past, when we've had stuff like this come out, so I feel like people oftentimes get tricked by this. And the earliest example I can remember is, of course, Killzone 2. Do you guys remember this? E3 2005, they showed this gameplay of Killzone 2 that was kind of like, you know, people were saying, oh, this is the system seller for PlayStation 3. This is going to be the greatest, most futuristic game ever. Because the graphics were so good, and I think even more impressive was the blend between gameplay and cutscene, right? It felt like you'd be watching this beautiful cutscene, and then next thing you know, the guy would have his gun out, and it's like you're playing the game. Like, people had never really seen something like this in an FPS before. But sure enough, this wasn't real gameplay, right? This was kind of the same thing, where this is target footage, where they were saying, this is what we want the end game to look like when we're done with. This is what we're aiming for. Which, you know, the end game looks good. Don't get me wrong. Killzone 2 is a great looking game. But especially when we talk about the smooth transitions between gameplay and cutscene, the end game doesn't really have any of the stuff that we see in here. And that's a little bit how I feel with this Virtua Fighter footage. Like, this blocking, the way he catches the individual hands of the opponent when he blocks, we can just admit that the game's not going to be like this, right? Can we all just admit, I'm willing to eat crow if it is like this. Like, look, him stopping the foot with his hand like that. Like, you guys know that's not going to be in the game, right? The game is going to be like this, right? Where you block, you have your hands up like this, and, you know, maybe if you get hit by a mid, your hand moves down. If you get hit by a high, your hand moves up, you know. That's going to be more what the game is like. Like, don't get me wrong, this looks great. Like, the way she reacts to the hits looks good. Ignore the quality, obviously, because this was like shot on a camera phone or something. I don't know. But yeah, we're not going to see that crazy level of, you know, like cutscene, like choreographed style animation in the final game. I think we can all just admit that. Yeah, like this right here. Check this out. Yeah, like the double like as he blocks the two kicks. I don't think we're getting that in the final game. And of course, I don't know we're not getting that. I have no way of knowing, but I'm just personally theorizing that this footage that is kind of meant to pitch the game is probably going to exaggerate what is going to be possible in the final game compared to what we get. I'm just theorizing that. I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel about it. Another time I feel like people kind of got swept up in the hype of early footage was Tekken 8. Now, obviously, Tekken 8 is an incredible looking game. I think it probably has the best graphics we've ever seen in a fighting game in terms of at least like a realistic art style fighting game. But this first trailer they showed us, I think maybe kind of exaggerated what the final game would be like. So yeah, like the graphics do almost look this good, I would say, in the final game. There's definitely a higher level of detail in this trailer than there is in the final game. But I think the big thing that's kind of exaggerated is, again, that smoothness of the transition between cutscene and gameplay. Like this kind of thing where, you know, we go into a cutscene and he gets up off the ground. Like, that's not really in the final game. Obviously, this is enhanced to, you know, show more detail and make the game look better. But I think if we took this all at face value and we're like, wow, this is what Tekken 8 is going to look like, I think it's normal that people would be a little bit disappointed. And sure enough, when the game came out, we got all those comparisons, the side-by-sides where people are like, the game got downgraded. And the third example I wanted to talk about of, you know, people kind of getting baited by early footage was Watch Dogs. You guys remember this? This is another Evo one where at the end of the day, the game came out and people felt like it didn't really match the level of fidelity that was shown in the first trailer. And the reason for this was basically they were kind of, you know, hand finagling little things to look amazing. And in a final game, you know, where everything is done procedurally, where you have, you know, the in-game weather effects, for example, that have to be able to have sunlight, nighttime, rain, and all that, versus when we know we're only showing this one vertical slice, we can make it look really perfect. So stuff that's in this didn't end up being in the final game, like trees moving in the wind and stuff like that. Another one was the shadows, right? The shadows in the final game don't really look like they do in this, because in this, they know they have this tiny, tiny area with the one specific type of lighting that they're going to show. And in the final game, you know, they have to have the whole world or whatever, so it can't look as perfect. So obviously this comparison doesn't quite work over for a fighting game where we don't have an open world, we don't have all the real-time weather and stuff like that. But I did kind of just want to make the point that, yeah, I hope that Virtua Fighter 6 or new Virtua Fighter project does end up exceeding all of our expectations. I feel like everything they've said about their development of the game, what they're aiming for, in terms of they want to innovate the genre. They want to go back to a really realistic game, not some game with, you know, anime kamehamehas and everything. I like the sounds of all that stuff, but just because we're aiming at something doesn't mean that that's the thing that we're going to get. So, yeah, I just, you know, I guess I just wanted to be a bummer today. I just wanted to rain on everyone's expectation. And this might actually, you know, hurt my channel. Maybe they won't want to advertise the game with me after I talk about this. But listen, I'm really excited for VF5 Revo. I'm looking forward to jumping into that game again after enjoying the beta that they did. And obviously, I'm really looking forward to the new Virtua Fighter as well. But another thing I want to point out is I think this game is probably a long way away. I would say there's like a 0% chance we see the game in 2025. And then maybe there's like a 50% chance we see it in 2026. Let's just be honest, because this is pre-development footage. Did I say that? This was made before development on the game started. So, you know, how early must they be in development? And, you know, most of the rest of the stuff they showed us was just like character renders. So, yeah, I think development is very, very early on in this game. So I think we would be lucky to see it next year. But I would like to see it, you know, but take your time. We're all going to be busy with City of the Wolves and 2XKO this year, so yeah, they can take their time and make sure that we get a game that lives up to the potential and lives up to the anticipation that we've had after playing Virtua Fighter 5 for so long. But yeah, that's about all I have to say. I guess what I'm saying is don't get baited, guys. Let's all look forward to Virtua Fighter 5 Revo coming out very soon, like in a couple weeks or something, or a week or two. So we'll all have access to that, and then we can patiently wait for more footage of new Virtua Fighter. So that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.